Hello, I'm Greg Anderson. If you live in Plymouth or Barnstable counties, there are two people seeking your vote to become your next state senator. And they actually have some things in common. One, they want your vote. Two, they are ready to go to Beacon Hill. If you haven't already mailed in your vote on Tuesday, May 19th, you can show up at the ballots and you can pick one of those two. Republican Jay McMahon joins me to talk about why he believes he deserves your vote. That's next on Meet the Candidates. I am so thrilled to welcome my guest, Jay McMahon, to Meet the Candidates. Jay, welcome to the show. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Greg. Good to be with you today and good to be here to discuss the issues. As you know, we're in the last week of this special election campaign, which is going to be on May 19. I want to encourage your viewers to go out and vote.
How's the campaign going?
The campaign is actually, well, you know, when you're in this kind of a situation, it's like anything else in life. Something gets thrown at you. So now you have to change course to still get the job done. Yeah. And so what we've done is we've increased our social media presence, and the bulk of my campaign prior to the beginning of March was door-to-door campaigning.
Yeah.
I am telling you, I knocked on literally thousands of doors. I enjoy that. I enjoy talking to the people about their issues. They bring a unique perspective on things. But the common thread that I'm finding out with people is that they want to know that they got somebody listening to them, not someone that's going to be owned by special interests. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Now, a lot of people are concerned about taxes. I mean, all my life, everybody's been concerned about taxes, but in particular, getting the money from people, paying it in, and seeing that money mismanaged and misspent. Give you an example. We got a state budget. We have $1 billion surplus. Now, that was in March. I know it's going to be, that's all shot now, but
yeah,
we had $1 billion surplus, and I'll say it like this, $1 billion surplus, Greg, again this year. We had one the year before. So they put that money away in what they call a rainy day fund. Well, it's raining now.
Boy, it's cats and dogs.
But I'll tell you, Greg, so here's the deal. People know that we have a surplus. Now, what is a surplus? Just so I can explain it to some of your viewers that may not know. That means we, right now, with the tax money we're spending, we are spending, we cannot spend enough of the money we're already collecting. Even though we're spending like crazy and we're mismanaged, we are taking in more money under the present schemes. We're taking in $1 billion more, $1 billion more. And on top of that, we are mismanaging that money. So to ask for another dime in taxes is an insult. Now, and I'm talking about state taxes. People are complaining, Greg, about their real estate taxes. Now, I don't have anything to do with that because that's the local governments that take care of that. But I hear them and I feel their pain because I also pay all kinds of taxes as well. I'm going to tell you something. I like to listen to the people. So what has it changed? And as you asked me in the campaign, it goes like this. We have to make phone calls. We do a lot of, I participate in a lot of meetings, such as like I'm meeting with you. Zoom is, I'll tell you right now, buy stock in Zoom, right?
I was going to say, we missed that opportunity. We should have done that back in January.
I'm telling you. Yeah. But so campaigning has, if you don't have that face-to-face that I used to like, shaking someone's hand, looking at them, talking to them, empathizing with them, understanding. In discussions, the citizens have excellent ideas.
Yeah.
We need somebody that's not going to go and just play for what they've been doing and continuing mismanaged state government. We need to bring some new innovation in there. And I'm the guy to do it because I've been listening to the people.
Jay, let me ask you this. You're going to represent as state senator, if should you win this seat, 6 towns: Bourne, Falmouth, Kingston, Pembroke, Plymouth, and Sandwich. Um, each of those towns are very unique, beautifully unique, but they also have very universal issues, tourism and transportation and infrastructure. We know that that's universal, but as state senator, you're representing all. And when you have to prioritize where to put your energies, how do you do that? And I give an example of Plymouth 400. It's totally derailed right now based on this pandemic. There are needs. How do you prioritize for each of these 6 towns? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right about the Plymouth 400. This is the 400th year of the Pilgrims landing in Plymouth, and I would be extremely honored to be the state senator and participate in those celebrations. My firm belief is those celebrations cannot be canceled, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But here's the unique thing, if there is a unique thing amongst the district itself, is that almost every town shares in the same thing. We are a hospitality industry. We are a vacation destination. People come from, I used to say all over the country, and then somebody reminded me, no, it's really all over the globe. And that is true. People come to see the monuments that are in Plymouth County, by and large in the town of Plymouth, but also in Duxbury, Kingston, and even Pembroke. All in those areas, people come here to see all that. They come to Cape Cod and they spend their vacations. And so the uniqueness is also the commonality. We have a local economy which is a 3-season economy. It's really 4, but in the wintertime, we're preparing for the other 3 seasons. And each town experiences a tripling or quadrupling of their population in the summertime. So with that, the unique issue that's facing us, although it's like a microcosm of the rest of the Commonwealth, is that we need to know that we are going to be open for business. People, tourists need to know they're already making their plans for vacation. And if they don't think that they can come to Cape Cod or to Plymouth and spend their vacation money dollars here, because we rely on tourism, they're going to go to Rhode Island, which is completely open. They're going to go to Newport, to Westerly. They're going to go down to Saybrook in Connecticut, or they're going to go up to Maine, which is an open rebellion right now against their own government. Or they're going to go to New Hampshire and Vermont to freshwater places. They'll go to the lakey areas and spend their vacation money on a sure thing, not on a bet that Cape Cod may or may not open. So I'm telling you, I'm going to be a loud voice for that. And you'll hear me a week from May. If we don't have a date on May 18 that we can announce, there's going to be some noise to be made, if you will.
So let me just ask.
Cape Cod
clearly,
open.
Yeah, I know you're very strong on we got to reopen the economy, and others
absolutely
have. So let me ask you. There's a report today that I saw in one of the newspapers that scientists are saying in Massachusetts are saying it's too soon to start widely opening. How do you speak to the science?
Okay, so I've seen that. I've heard that. I have seen many models. Greg, you're focusing on a particular model that these scientists are focusing on. One of the things I heard the president say last week is that so far, all the models have been wrong. Now, that's interesting, all the models, because I am also seeing models that are saying that this virus, COVID-19 coronavirus, is now morphing and changing and is not as potent as it was at the beginning of this pandemic. Now, it's mutating. And I also saw historical figures that say all pandemics mutate. They just do. That's why they're no longer here. That's why we don't have SARS, MRSA, H1N1, and all the other pandemics, and go back to the bubonic plague. We don't have those anymore because they mutate and our immune systems are able to kick them out. Now, I also saw some figures. The average age of death from COVID-19 is 82 years old. Now, Greg, you only have to do a little math. If the average is 82, to get to 82, you got to have higher numbers as well as lower numbers. Now, that tells me the nursing homes where most of these people reside are the ones that are in danger the most. We need to protect those people. But young teenagers, now some have gotten it, yes. So we have to be prepared for that. But look, Greg, we cannot shut down our entire society on a whim. And it is a whim because you're deciding which model you're going to accept. I think we use reasonable precautions, which is masks, distancing. Use the same thing that you use in the liquor store. You go in, there's plexiglass, you wear a mask. The same thing we use in the post office. The same thing we use in the grocery store. The same thing we use at Walmart.
So
it's not getting any better. The numbers are now coming down.
yeah, so here's what we do know is from the trending of the virus, the contagion element is so significant that as young or old, and particularly when you're looking at, and I work in the senior living business, my wife is in the nursing home business, so I'm, that is just a crazy time. But
I know you're on top of that one then.
Yeah, but it's
you
not.
hear it every day.
It's not our age that
Right.
is necessarily at the top of the risk, but we are the ones that carry it. So
Right.
here's my question. There are people that stand at the bridge and they're saying, open it up, and there are Trump
Right.
signs, and there is a message of let's just go, let's just release. And there's a percentage of people, whatever that percentage is, that say, whoa, time out. I'm okay with a staggered, and I want to ask you about the governor's 4-phase plan. And I know that you actually have laid out a 10-point plan.
Right.
But are we responding to the anti-hype, this is a conspiracy, this is about people trying to control our lives, versus we don't know what the models to believe. We have questions, more questions than we have answers. How do you speak to that?
Well, Greg, it's interesting you said that about the models. You're right. We don't know what the models have. I have heard the people that want to reopen now. Basically, as I understand it, because I try to listen to groups and people, I try to listen to them carefully, what they're really saying. I have not heard anyone say, get rid of the masks, they're too restrictive. I haven't heard anyone say, stop social distancing, we don't need it. I haven't heard anybody say that, Greg. What I have heard was business people saying, you can't keep us out of business. If they keep doing that, Greg, we are going to lose this season. If we lose this season, the next line will be in December at the bankruptcy court, people lining up to cash it all in because it's over.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
Greg, this season on Cape Cod, if we lose it, we are done. They will go to Newport, and they will go up to Hampton Beach and Rye, New Hampshire, and they will go to Kittybunkport, Maine. They will not come here if there's a chance that it's not going to be open, because the time to make their plans are now. We need a message going out to the world that Cape Cod will be open for business. We cannot tell them it's going to be open in September. It's too late, and we're all going to die financially. And that is worse than the pandemic. Because look at, even now, you know, because you said your wife is in the medical field, Cape Cod Healthcare just furloughed, you might as well say laid off, because it's almost the same thing, 600 employees. Do you know why, Greg? There's no business. But now, I'm not saying that we should not have set up a special hospital out on the military base for potential use of COVID-19 patients, because we were prepared. But it never came to fruition. And the numbers are now tumbling down. No one I have heard that said, let's not be cautious, but reasonable precautions. Don't shut down the entire state, because Cape Cod cannot recover if they tell us, oh, you can open in September. It's forget it, we're dead.
Do you feel that we have the infrastructure if we have a bounce back?
Okay, first of all, as you said, you've seen some models. I have seen some models too that say there will be no bounce back. And the reason why there will not is we are taking the necessary precautions for the disease, or I should say for this pandemic, that is actually killing people. That's the elderly. We clearly know that's where the bulk of the deaths are. What we do know is that we can handle this. We can certainly handle it now because we are on the tail end of this pandemic. So we already know how to handle it. There's talking about vaccines coming, but Greg, the scientific fact is this virus is mutating. They all mutate. It's just a scientific fact. Now, I'm not banking on that, but I'm telling you that as long as we maintain the reasonable precautions. For instance, I already mentioned the liquor store. If that's safe enough to go to the liquor store and the precautions they're taking, and the post office, which is the precautions they're taking, and the grocery store, why can't the restaurants do this? Why can't we set up something with reasonable guidelines, and then we will be sure that this wouldn't happen? But I'm telling you, the reason why I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but while everybody else was shouting about we got to shut down and social and lock down in place, the economy is going to hell. And if we don't open it up, we're going to be in trouble. And Greg, let me just be honest with you. Business groups are clamoring strong because not only them, but their employees. We're talking thousands just in my district alone. Yeah. I'm listening to them. I hear them loud and clear. No one is against reasonable precautions. We're against a shutdown and no plan to give to the people of the world that Cape Cod will be open, Plymouth will be open for the 24th. Right now, we're hearing all kinds of stuff in Boston are going to be shut down. The 4th of July celebration on the Esplanade is going to be shut down. I don't want Plymouth to be shut down. I don't want Cape Cod to be shut down.
Let me ask you this. You have a reopen plan.
Right.
And as I was looking at it, and I was appreciative of the 10 points that you had put down. When I think of a plan, I think of here's the timing, here's right. What's first, here's what's next. What I'm seeing is, and I really want to understand what these are, they seem to be almost appropriate campaign messages. You know, if elected, I want to bring this to you. So when I look at right. things, and I'll just read them off: an immediate 30-day meals tax holiday when restaurants reopen, a 1-year moratorium on new regulations on businesses, reduce the sales tax to 5%, make several sales tax holiday weekends, one each month starting in June, repeal the Airbnb tax, furlough on non-essential state employees for 2 weeks, stop all legislation raising the gas tax, creating carbon taxes and new tolls, lift the ban on happy hours to help restaurants, require Social Security number verification for all taxpayer-funded benefits, and number 10, require Social Security number verification for all taxpayer-funded businesses. Sorry, that was 9. 10 is immediately review the list of essential businesses so as to allow businesses to submit a social distancing plan for reopening.
You know something? You read that correctly.
Well,
you got them all in there.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I'm
Sure.
fascinated from the perspective of how this gets put together. I'm interested in how things on the federal level are done. I'm interested in how you did this. Tell me, what does your team look like? Who advises you? How did you, discussions? What is it that brought you to these 10, and how did you select them, process-wise?
Okay. All right. First of all, let me tell your viewers that if you go to my website, www.attorney, you got to spell out the word attorney, Jay McMahon, MCMAHON.com. If you go there, you will see those 10 points that Greg just read out, so you can have them in front of you, so you know what we're talking about. Or you can go, they're also on my Facebook page at JAY4. That's the number 4, State Senate. J for State Senate. You go either one of those places, you will see those 10-point plans, and you also see a 4-point plan for helping seniors in the state. Whenever I say helping in the district, it really is the state, because all these plans are going to go through the state government. So it's not like well, first of all, most of the points I mentioned have to go through the state. Who's on my plan? Who's on my committee, and who's planning that? Okay, so a couple of things. I've been attorney for 30 years, and I have represented businesses, hundreds of businesses in the district, in all the towns of the district, for those 30 years. So I've got plenty of friends to talk to. It's not like we sat down with the committee, although the people in my campaign, obviously, we sat down and put them in the numbers as we see them as priority. But we also got a number of these. This was formulated. These were plans that we were going to do to help businesses anyway prior to the pandemic. What we did do was the pandemic said, listen, we've got to put a response to this pandemic. And so we brought it all together. And I'll give you an example of what was the some of the ones that we put in there as a result of the pandemic. Lifting the ban on happy hour. That was a big one. And I'll explain that in a few moments. And also the moratorium on meal tax, the meal tax. Now, here is what we need to do. When we talk about helping local businesses, there's 2 ways to do it. There's give them an influx of cash from the government, a loan, if you will, almost like if a hurricane came through and devastated all the businesses. So now we're going to give them some emergency low interest loans. Some of them going to be pretty much like we're doing now with the PPP, protecting the payroll of small businesses and things like that. However, that well during this pandemic is pretty much going to run dry, probably is run dry now with all the money that we've given people for unemployment and all that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have given them that. I'm just saying it has. So it's an economic fact we have to deal with. But what we decided was, or as we looked at the problem, we said, we need to get an infusion of cash to our businesses. And we need to do it in a way that will entice business to go. So for instance, tourists and even locals. So when you entice people to go into a restaurant, because now it's actually going to be a lot cheaper, not only on the specials, but it's going to be cheaper because you're not going to have to pay a tax on it. That means these restaurants can start booking up. And the idea is to get them so that the bars and restaurants can book during times where they normally do not have business. That's why early bird specials help with that, but also lifting the ban on happy hour. Now, I've gone to other states. I've gone to Florida. I've been to the Caribbean where they have happy hours. And of course they work, They bring in tourists during times where there's not a heavy flow for the dinner hour, for instance, and they just pack them in. Well, that's what we need to do here so that these restaurants and businesses can recover from being shut down all winter. So when I look at that, it's all incentives to get cash infusion from the local economy, and then as the tourists come in. By doing that, these people have a chance of recovering. They'll never recover.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at of the 10, 6 of them are about taxes.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
But you do have one on the social distancing
Yes.
practices. Unpack that a little bit more for me. Let's say under State Senator McMahon, you have been given carte blanche to say, okay, in your district, let's open it the way you see it. Give me let's say June 1st for 90 days. What does that look like to you?
Okay. Let's look at the, let's take the liquor store model. The reason why I like to use that model is because it's retail, it's customers in the store, walking around, looking at things, selecting items. It's also the grocery store model because we're doing the same thing in the grocery stores. So I'm looking at that. Now, social distancing, when you show up at a restaurant with, say, several people, generally they're family members or they're other members who you've been living with or being around. You're being around them anyway. And you come into a restaurant and you select a table. The tables are spaced out. There may be servers there. I think there should be. I think there can be. I think using the masks, serving, but of course you can't eat with a mask on. So people can eat in the restaurants with the tables social distance. It could be that you go up and get your order. In other words, you go up to a station, which they serve the food to you, just like we're getting now curbside, except now it's being done inside. You can go in and get your food and do that. The hotels are going to have to come up with a way of sanitizing each room every time afterwards. But that's why I say giving so-called non-essential businesses the opportunity to present a plan, to present it to the local Board of Health and say, we can open, this is what we're going to do. Now, the local Board of Health has to think, is this as safe as what we're already allowing in the post office, the grocery stores, and the liquor stores? And if it is, let's do it.
How do you take
to prevent the spread?
Yeah, how do you take a lot of discussion about churches, places of worship? How do you take a 250 parishioner church and say, okay, we're open, but what does that but look like in your mind?
I'm glad you asked that because earlier you had mentioned about the people protesting about the government controlling our lives. Greg, whether we accept it or not, it is a fact of life. They have controlled our lives. I'll give you an example. The First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees us the right of assembly, the right of free speech, the right to worship. Now, what it really says is that Congress cannot pass a law, and I'm paraphrasing, interfere with religion. Congress being the government, everybody's interpreted that correctly, that it's the government cannot interfere with religion. Assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and a whole bunch of other things. Okay, so those are the first three. Now, has the government, with this pandemic, interfere with those rights? Well, the answer is absolutely yes, they have. Now, how do we go about resolving that is important because they are rights that the government, by the way, the government, meaning the governor, has unilaterally declared non-essential based on the proclamation and the orders. Now, I'm not passing judgment on whether those orders are protecting us or not. I'm just saying The constitutional rights have already been affected. So, can they have been affected with less severity? For instance, reasonable precautions. And the answer to that is, of course, they could. Why is it you can't go out to the beaches and take a nice long walk down there? Why are they all closed? Why can't you go to the park with your dog and have a mask on? They're all closed. It's crazy that we shut everything down when we say you can go to the liquor store and buy a bottle of booze and it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay with the liquor stores. I'm
well,
okay.
I am too,
Yeah,
to
I'm
be
okay with the
honest.
liquor stores.
But I want it okay for other businesses.
Yeah. So let me.
You asked about the churches.
Yeah. But I'm
Okay.
trying to understand the. Here we are back in February.
Right.
Did the president know? Did the administration know? What all of a sudden, boom, March lands,
Right.
and we are upside down and
Absolutely.
trying to navigate our way through fear and pandemic. It is what you see in movies.
Right.
Now you get into
April. It is like a movie.
It is.
When we're all starring in it.
Yeah, exactly. I do look like George Clooney. I just want that on the record.
I wanted to say that. I was going to say that at the beginning of the show.
But I'm thinking Joe Pesci for you. You kind of got that Joe Pesci and Goodfellas thing.
Goodfellas, yeah, Casino,
yeah,
absolutely.
But when I look at the trajectory of we're figuring this out, we have now arrived at, and we've been here for a little bit, of people saying enough is enough.
Right.
That brings concern that we are going too fast. Not that we're not going to put things in place. So let's talk about speed, if we can. I completely understand about, we got to open churches, let them congregate outside. It's springtime. It's a nice sunny day on a Sunday, whatever that may be.
And Greg, you and I know they're going to do it anyway.
They are.
They are doing it anyway.
They are.
Listen, I went to downtown Plymouth last week with my wife. I figured, let's just drive around and take a look, right? Okay, so you would think that I was going to find it was sort of like a ghost town. Oh my God, people were everywhere. You couldn't get a parking space. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, oh boy, they're not all wearing masks or anything. This could be a problem. I'm thinking to myself, I'm driving around, no parking spaces. The place is like, there was one ice cream store that was open. Now, restaurants were serving curbside, but it was an hour and a half because my wife and I, we were kind of hungry and we started calling actually, we called about 10 restaurants and they were all an hour and a half. And I said, well, hon, we're only 20 minutes from home.
Yeah, right.
If we're hungry, let's go home then, because they were that much. So business is what people are chomping at the bit to get. So, but I just wanted to let you know people are getting out.
Yeah.
No matter what, they're getting out.
Yeah, and we all need some fresh air. Just a couple more things on the
churches.
On the churches, but also just on the recovery plan. It's really how do you speak to the timing? If we were to say over the next 90 days, X, Y, and Z is going to happen, do you measure success of whether that worked or not based on revenue for individual businesses? What is your metric to be able to say that's not fast enough or we need to go faster?
Okay, well, here's the metric. To understand how the Cape economy and how the Plymouth economy works. I've lived in this district all my life. You've got to understand how it works. Again, we'll go back to the model. It's a hospitality model. So people all over the globe that come here to vacation are making their decisions. They're looking into hotels. They probably have already made some decisions because we're already too late. Other states have already announced that they are open. I'm telling you, Newport is going to be crowded. It's always crowded anyway, but it's going to be just flooded. And I don't want to repeat what I've already said on the...
Doesn't that give you concern, even just for Rhode Island? Flooded?
No, 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 it doesn't. Not at the models I've been looking at, and that we're not throwing caution to the wind. We are using reasonable precautions. Let's get to the churches, because this to me is the most important. Well, one of the most important. The churches. Why can't the churches come up with a plan like we're doing in the liquor store? For instance, social distancing, which, by the way, there's a church in Worcester that is doing that. Social distancing, in other words, you can sit with your family members or the group of people that you came in with. Got to have a mask on. They supply rubber gloves for you at the church if you don't have any, and they supply a mask for you. They let you come in, and they keep you 6 feet apart in a couple of rows. So there's like there's a row, 2 empty rows, then a row, 2 empty rows, and then a row. And then they have multiple services. In other words, you have and I look at it, I call it the Catholic model because it works. You got a service at 9, a service at 11, a service at 1, and then they go through. They have people, actually volunteers in the church, that just go down and spray all the pews down and everything. I just can't see why that doesn't work. Why doesn't that satisfy the problem? Why is that not reasonable precautions? Instead of just saying, no, you're non-essential, shut them down. I'm offended by that, Greg. And the First Amendment to the Constitution is offended by that without giving them a reasonable response and say, come up with some guidelines, show us. Greg, there's a letter that was signed by about 300 pastors to the governor asking him to reconsider. If there's silence to that letter, what does that tell you? The answer is no. Caesar said no. And I'm telling you, I'm offended by that. And there are people in this district that are also offended by that. These churches should at least be given the opportunity to come up with a plan, and they haven't, and that lies the problem.
Have to your knowledge, give me another example. Give me another example of over the next 90 days. Pick another industry. You know, we talked restaurants, we talked churches.
You want to talk to hotels? Let's talk about the beaches. Greg, we open up in just 2 weeks. We open up, or we should be opening up, Memorial Day weekend, the 3-day weekend. That's the big bang. That's where the starting line starts. That's where you hear them say, on your mark, get set, go. And it opens up. And you know something? Even though we got a 4-phased in plan from the governor, not one of those steps has an opening date. He actually warned us that May 18 comes, we're just revealing something, but don't think it's ready to start. I'm telling you, what message does that send out to the world? Massachusetts will not be open until what? August? Forget it.
So let me just ask you, and you have so many other things, and we're running short on time. I don't want to miss anything here.
Okay.
When we look at the dynamic of you know, how we reopen and what that looks like, a lot of it has to do with enforcement, and really, you know, what impact do you see on enforcement? Because some people will say, screw the mask. I don't care about social distancing. I'm not getting used to, I'm not sick. And they just kind of go about it, crowd the beaches.
I agree. I agree that we have that issue.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, prior to the order for putting on the masks, prior to the order, at the beginning of March, my particular bank, I don't want to name the bank, I kind of liked them, but they had an order that they put a sign up front when you come up to the line, and it said right on the sign, "We will not serve you without a mask on." And at first I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. Now I got to go back out to the car to get a mask, right? And the manager was very nice. She said from the, sir, you have to have a mask on for us to do that. That's our that's the bank's precautions. That was before the order. So fortunately, I had a mask in the car, and I said, okay. And the reason why I would use the mask when I went into a crowded area like Walmart, because there's just a lot of people. But in this particular bank, there wasn't many, and there was enough social distancing. But I said, okay. So I went out and got the mask, and they wanted you to use that. And so I thought back on that when I first put this 10-point plan out, and I'm thinking, no, that's a reasonable precaution. You remember back in the early days, when I say early days, about 20 years ago, there was a thing that came out that said, no smoking in restaurants. And the restaurants would tell you, yeah, you can't smoke in here anymore. Just can't. It's a new law and you can't smoke in the restaurant. So what happened? They wouldn't serve you. Well, they tell you to get out. Okay, so why can't we do, sorry, we cannot serve you without a mask here. Plain and simple. You can't park on the, let me tell you something. Have you ever gone to a beach on Cape Cod? I look at the sign, all the things you can't do. And I said, why don't they just put a sign out there that said, no fun allowed? Because you can't ball play, you can't frisbee, you can't use a snorkel, can't use a mask, can't swim. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can't do. Well, one of them is you're not allowed on the beach. No dogs allowed on the beach. No patrons allowed on the beach without a mask. Now, you can't swim. You're not going to swim with a mask. But we can do this. We don't shut the beaches down. We only shut them down when we know there's a shark roaming off the coast.
Do you think, though, aren't we hasn't the horse already left the barn as it relates to our economy on the Cape and the summer?
Almost.
I mean, like I have family members that would be coming to my house here in East Sandwich, and they're thinking, I don't think I'm making a plan to Cape Cod. I'd love to, but aren't we a little past that? Like, now we need to, and believe me, the economy is killing people, but how much do we say, okay, this is a wreck and it's going to be a wreck for a while. We can put some mitigation plans in there and the masks and all of that, but we cannot get this Cape and South Shore, the economy, back to what it was, or probably not even 40% of what we need it to be.
Greg, it is a wreck, but we are continuing in this wreck. We need to step out of this wreck. We can do this. Come on, we're American patriots. They actually fought the American Revolution during a pandemic. We can do this. We can do it with reasonable precautions. We are crazy to delay this opening and losing all this business when we can use reasonable precautions. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but the average age of people dying of this pandemic is 82 years old. We can open the economy and take care and protect those people. Children do not, by and large, do not get this. Adults, some of them are carriers. So, granted, there are some, like any virus, there are some that catch it, but they survive it the best. Adults survive this. Numbers are tumbling down. And all I can say is that it is absolutely crazy to sacrifice our economy to this when we don't have to. And that's the thing I want to stress with your viewers, Greg. We don't have to sacrifice our entire economy and our livelihood because of this pandemic. The numbers are not there to cause us to have an extreme precaution that we're going to lock down Cape Cod all summer long. It's crazy, and I'm going to keep beating the drum so that we don't lose everything to what might happen, and it's not happening now. The numbers are not there to support this.
Let me move to your 7 points of your campaign.
Okay.
Lower tax burden, restore integrity on Beacon Hill, fight opioid epidemic, grow our local economy, transportation, strengthen public safety, and oppose illegal immigration. I understand tax burden, opioids. I understand growing the economy.
Yeah, because people are dying of opiates by the tune of 2,000 a year, but apparently that's an acceptable figure. In other words, it's almost like a war. We're losing the war. I'll tell you right now, if we had those kind of numbers in a war, we'd be winning the war. But if the enemy had those kind of numbers. The problem is on the opiate epidemic, which is still in full swing, we're losing 2,000 a year or 6 a day. Now, apparently to our government and to our officials, that's acceptable. It's completely unacceptable to me. And if you've lost a loved one, like I have, to the opiate epidemic, it's not acceptable to you. And when you see the heartache and the pain of parents having to bury their children because of the opiate epidemic, you become enraged, and then afterwards, you start thinking, there's something better we can do. Here's the dirty little secret, Greg. Opiate addiction is curable in Massachusetts. We have the technology. We have the methods. We're just not utilizing them. The government programs are a dismal failure, and we can do something about it with just some wise spending and some correct allocation of resources, but we're not doing it. But I am going to be the biggest proponent when it comes to that, because I know it can be done. I know that it can be cured. People come from all over the planet to Massachusetts to get governors, queens, kings, prime ministers, presidents of other countries. They don't go to their local capitals. They come to Boston, to Massachusetts, to get all their cancers, their blood disorders, and everything else you can think of. They get taken care of here in Massachusetts because we have the technology. We also have it for opiate addiction, but we're not utilizing it to the fullest.
Let me ask you this: restore integrity at the State House. How do we need? What is it that we need? Well, let me ask you this: how do you know that your constituents within this Plymouth and Barnstable district do not have faith in our state government, in the State House?
Because, Greg, I went door to door in every town of this district, meeting and greeting the citizens. And everywhere I go, people read the newspapers, listen to the local news, and for instance, the state police scandal. Greg, we have an entire troop that is a major division within the state police, Troop E. It covers the Mass Turnpike and also the Logan Airport. They disband the entire troop because of corruption in the state police. We have people who were putting on their timesheets that they were working a particular shift and writing phony tickets to prove that they were working when everybody knows they weren't. And they were paying time and a half. Now, if you, the law is, if you embezzle or commit fraud or steal over $250, that is a felony. Greg, each trooper, every day that they did that, committed a felony. These troopers have committed hundreds of felonies during their careers. This thing wasn't done just on a month or two. This has been done for decades. And nobody in state government, including the Attorney General, is investigating this. If it weren't for the feds, it would still go uninvestigated. It is pathetic how the state government has responded to this. And I want to tell you something, Greg. People are angry about that. People are angry that the troopers, the bad ones, I'm not pointing any fingers at the good troopers, the other 90% who are good, honest heroes, in my estimation, and in the people of Massachusetts, because the state police is the cream of the crop. But when you have such a large number of troopers, Greg, wouldn't it have been better that at the end of a shift, one righteous trooper said, all of you, come into the booking room. You're all under arrest. Put your guns over there, put your badges over here. I know what you're doing. I've seen it firsthand, and you're all under arrest. No, the entire Troop E on the Mass Pike, they were all in on it, Greg, from the lieutenants all the way down. And it's only the feds that are acting on this. People are fed up with that. They know that there's other corrupt things going on Beacon Hill. I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to be go along to get along. I'm going to go in and I'm going to find it and I'm going to see it because it's obvious. And I'm going to shout it out to all the media, what's going on there. And because I'll tell you what, the spotlight is a great disinfectant. And I'm going to call, remember the Globe used to have the Globe Spotlight team, and they would go into local courthouses and they would go in at 2:00 and nothing could be heard because the judges took the rest of the afternoon off. There was nobody in the clerk's office and they shined a spotlight on that. Oh, that worked effectively. Because I can remember I was practicing law then like I am now. And I remember all of a sudden you go in at 4:00 and there's everybody at their desks, everybody working. I'm telling you something. We need to bring a spotlight to this. And I'm going to do it because look, Greg, I'm too old to go along to get along. I've seen it all and I've been paying taxes all my life. And to see it wasted, to see $100 million paid in just overtime on the MBTA, and you can't get from one station to the other without the train breaking down, catching fire, or have some odious smell that they can't find the source of, it's crazy. And so they get worse and worse.
Playing devil's advocate here.
They hide these problems.
Yeah, playing devil's advocate here.
All right, go ahead.
Well, no, as a
you're doing a good job. Go ahead.
As a taxpayer, I can hear this in one of two ways. Get out there, I like it. Rattle the cages, or I don't want you spending time on Troop E. I don't want you spending time on the MBTA. I don't want you to be talking about things that don't impact, me here. Because I think of, the Isaac's restaurant in Plymouth. I think of the Spotted Cod.
It's one of my favorite restaurants. I love Isaac's.
There you go. The Spotted Cod, a beautiful store in downtown Sandwich. There are people who are saying, I need you to be in my store talking to me about my issues here. One might hear the over the top passion that you have as, are you going to be focused on my district, on me?
You know something? I'm glad you mentioned Isaac's. I'll tell you why. My wife and I, what we've been doing is from the beginning of the campaign, we're going into various restaurants throughout the district. In every town, we'll pick one. We'll mention, I'll tell her to look. We got our team captains, and I'll tell the team captains, I want a list of all the restaurants because we're going down them one at a time. And Isaac's, I went in there, it was about 3 months ago. So it was before the pandemic. Well, of course, they all closed down because of the pandemic, but it was before that. And so I went in, and the manager recognized me, and he said, hey, I know you. And I said, probably from the AG run. He goes, yeah, but you're running for state senate. I said, yes. And I said, he came up to me. What we do is our general, my wife and I do, we sit down at the table, we'll ask the waitress after we get put in our order, say, is the manager in? Yeah, could you have him just come on over? And I introduce myself to them and tell them, I say, listen, here's my card, here's our contact information. But I said, if you got a few minutes, I'd like you to sit down with us. I just want to find out how's business, what are some of your concerns, and what could I do to help you? And they listen. And they say a lot of things. And they talk about some of their concerns. Most of them, because it was before the pandemic, they liked the economy. They were saying the economy is as best as they've ever seen it. And I was saying to them, I understand that because in my degree, although I got a law degree, my undergrad is in business administration with an emphasis on the economy. So I know how the economy works. And the last thing you want to do in a good economy is tax it. The worst you want to do when it's bad is to create more taxes. So if you maintain the tax base, which by the way, in Massachusetts, although I want to reduce the sales tax to encourage people to stay and purchase in Massachusetts, I want to reduce the sales tax. We have, like I said earlier, Greg, we have $1 billion surplus. And although we didn't get to it, we're spending another $1.8 billion every year on the health, education, and benefits and welfare benefits to illegal aliens. So when you look at all that, you're saying we got almost $3 billion that we can do something for Massachusetts and the citizens who, by the way, are paying that. And so that's what I've been doing, Greg. I've been getting around. I've been talking to businesses. I've been calling friends, people that I've represented before in business and saying, how is this affecting your economy? The lobstering industry, for instance. I've been calling, I've got a very good friend of mine that's got several lobster boats. I said, how's business? He goes, the problem right now is that the restaurants, once they open, he goes, will be booming. But because they can't sit people down, curbside works, but it's not ideal. Having people come in, that's where you really get the money, turning over those tables. And we're not seeing that right now. So the price of lobsters are way down because the demand, it just isn't there. But we're going to see it if we open up. So, I mean, those are the things I'm looking at, and those are the people I'm talking to.
Yeah. In your campaign literature, I didn't see anything about education in there. Right now, our schools are literally upside down. Kids are at home, teachers. For that fifth grade teacher in Pembroke, or that special ed teacher in Falmouth, who is staring at the ballot and sees you or your challenger, what would incent, what is the reason that a school teacher that in education would say, I want McMahon?
Okay. I'm speaking now to the school teachers and the school administrators. First of all, you all know you're still getting paid. A lot of people out there are not getting paid. A lot of people, their jobs are going to be disappearing if Cape Cod doesn't open up, if Plymouth is not allowed to open up. So you're still getting paid. You're going to have your jobs. And that's number one. And I'm glad. And I will make sure that continues that way. Number two, because this district does not have a city, the formula for getting aid to your schools is skewed against us. That formula has to be changed because every school system has fixed costs. They have school buildings to run. They have staff that they have to continue to have to maintain those buildings. And the formula is skewed against us and in favor of the cities because it's based on population. And that formula has to be changed. It has to be based on population, student to population, not necessarily the population just of the students in the schools. So I'm going to do everything I can to raise that issue so that we can get, and I know you've heard this before about fair share, but in this case, it's true. The local towns, see, I've got 6 towns in this district. To be fair, Falmouth and Plymouth are city sizes. They actually, towns are bigger than some cities, but they still call themselves towns. And so they're treated like that in the school formulas. I'm going to work to change that formula so that you get the resources the same as as downtown Boston, the same as downtown Brockton, Lawrence and Lowell and New Bedford and all those. And by the way, I've seen what they're doing with some of their funds and they're squandering them, but you won't because you will receive those funds as necessary resources so that you can teach this next generation and teach them properly with the right tools. And I'm going to see to it that you get it.
We have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm gonna just ask you this. A couple of quick questions.
Okay.
What have you learned about yourself in this campaign specifically, and maybe you know, your other campaign for Attorney General? You must have a little bit of, didn't think I would react that way, or it fueled me up to do something differently. What have you learned about you?
I realized that I like people more than I originally thought. I'm serious. For 30 years, I've represented people who were in trouble for one way or another: business problems, contracts going bad, supply routes gone, landlords whose tenants are not paying, tenants who are doing what they should have done and had unscrupulous landlords. I've represented domestic relations things, and usually I'm the forefront to resolve those problems for those people, but they pay me to do it. So I'm a high-paid professional working in a court system that the public owns. One of the things I do have is an empathy for people and their problems. And talking to people face to face, I can hear and feel what they're going through. I also can hear what they're thinking globally. A lot of people want to tell me what they think of President Trump. A lot of people want to tell me what they think of the economy. A lot of people want to tell me what they think of what's going on in the Middle East. And I listen to them. A lot of people are complaining about the real estate taxes that they have to pay. And obviously that's a town hall issue, but I do address it with them. I tell them what can be done. And what I found out is you get stretched, but you got to get information. You got to know what's going on in the district, in the various towns. And I keep myself informed of what's going on in each town. What I offer the people is that I'm going to be attending local meetings, local selectmen meetings, school committee meetings. Now, not every one, because some of them will be conflicting, but I'm going to be accessible to the people in the district. I just like helping people. And I've learned ways by knowing the law and having to work with the law for 30 years. I know how to help people. I know how to get things done. And if I can tell you, if you're not a successful lawyer in the early years, you're out of business. You're doing something else. You're working retail. If you're not good at it. I've been pretty good at it, had a pretty good living for the past 30 years. I knew I could have done something as Attorney General, just didn't turn out.
Yeah.
But I know I can do something for the people as a state senator, and I will be accessible.
Let's end on that note. Jay McMahon, state senator, candidate. May 19th is the day to vote. I'm sure some have already mailed them in. Jay, thank you so much for joining me. I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have as well.
I have, Greg. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Let's do it again, okay?
Great. Stay right there just for a minute. I want to say farewell to my viewers. I want to thank Paula Johnson. She's the executive producer. She does a great job over at Sandwich Community Television, and Rob and Tyke and Alex and the whole team over there. They do a great job trying to bring issues and candidates like Jay and others to you in a way in which it can help you be better informed before Election Day. I'm Greg Anderson, and I'll see you soon.